Oh, there's no way you didn't. Oh, unbelievable. I didn't tell you this other part about this game, by the way. The guy that we've got in goal is going to the team we're playing literally when this game finishes. So we're all sitting around going, hang on a second, you can't let him play, he'll throw the game. And people are going, no, he'll be professional, he won't throw the game. What? You're telling me he wouldn't go to his new employers having thrown the game and not be compensated for it? Get the fuck out of here. You naive sons of bitches. Anyway. By the way, we're 2-0 down now, by the way. Thanks a lot for that. You left and we conceded the goal.
Wait. When I went to the bathroom, it was 1.
It was, and you left, and that's why we conceded. So stay where you are. We've established that you leaving the conversation is detrimental to my football game, so don't go anywhere. You need to go to the bathroom at this point. You hold that sucker in, okay?
Pay yourself. God
damn it. Right, oh, fuck. Right, I'm going to try and not be G'd up too much. Right, let's settle down a little bit. Let's ease people in. I don't want to scare people off. Right, okay. Okay. Right. There we go. Glad you could join us today. There we go. That's a good little bead right there. There we go. I'm just going to put a little dash of rage in the corner there. And that's going to be our little secret. Right. I've built this up too much now, so fuck it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to this edition of the Halcyon Show. My name's Lon Risley. I'm going to be a host for this episode, or rather co-host, because there is someone lurking in the deep, dark recesses of your mind. He has come to illuminate your minds, enrich your souls, and indeed school you on all things except Robert Pattison as Batman. His name is Cyril. He is the host, producer, brain trust and genius behind the Defunct Games channel. I strongly recommend you go and support what he's doing over there. Let the people know you're here.
Well, don't worry, people. Your brains are going to be okay. What an introduction.
Well, hey, I like to... Again, I'm all about the pro wrestling, and I think if I build you up, then people are going to be like, wow, who's this demigod walking among us?
Should I have come in with a character like, ooh, yeah?
I think if you come in with whatever you want to come in with, people at that point are going to go, wow, this is how demigods behave. Okay, this demigod is really relatable. I really like this guy. Now, not only could he smite me, I'd have a beer with this guy.
I wondered why you had a smoke machine in this place.
I like I've got a flair for the theatric. My plants have pyro.
A little too much neon.
Yeah, there's a lot of neon going on around here. Do you know what? No word of a lie, though. For the show, I always loved the idea of having like a little neon logo in the background. But when you look at the price of those things, you go, I don't like it. I don't like that idea that much.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's a nice idea, but it's not that nice an idea.
You have to get, like, not one of the really expensive custom ones, but, like, just a random-ass, like, open sign.
Yeah.
That you can get, like, at any store that's, like, $80. It's just, like, flashes open.
Or just a light bulb and just cut out a piece of paper with the logo in front of it and just hope that no one stares too closely at the thing behind it. But
don't put it too close to the light bulb.
Well, you gotta take some risks when making it. Oh my God, you left, didn't you? You got up and left because there's a penalty, and I know I'm being unprofessional in the podcast situation right now, but for the people who don't know, Arsenal are currently 2-0 down. Right, we're now 3. Cyril, I told you don't go anywhere. We're now 3-0 down. What's wrong with you?
This is such a train wreck.
Unbelievable. Right, I'm going to ignore my hopes and dreams being set on fire as we speak. So, for those of you who don't know, Cyril is a content creator on YouTube, but he's also a game fanatic. He is a connoisseur. He's everything about gaming. If you argue with him about gaming, trust me, you're going to lose. Anything else, though, you'll win, so you're fine.
We'll find out about that.
Well, that's the thing.
I started the Defunct Games website, defunctgames.com, back in 2001. So, not like I started YouTube like 3 or 4 years ago. So let's defunctgames.com. There's like a bunch of years worth of stuff
there you go, you see. So again, this guy knows what he's talking about, and I don't think we're going to be focusing a lot on games, though, are we?
No, I mean, we didn't last time, but we'll see. Maybe we'll get in there, but probably not.
So, I guess in fact, no, I'm gonna throw it out. I dictated the pace of the first conversation. I feel it's only fair. Cyril to serve. Where do you want to start?
Well, Lauren, I hear you're a really big fan of the next Batman.
We are starting here. I'm glad that's where we're starting. This is where we're kicking off things nice and hot.
I mean, that's the impression that I'm getting. So I'm here to argue against Robert Patterson. Pattison?
So you don't even know who you're arguing
I don't even
for
know his
against
name.
anymore.
Pattinson, yeah, Robert Pattinson. I'm here to argue against him because, damn it, he was in Twilight, so he's always going to... That's not the argument I'm going to make. That's the argument you're going to make, I think.
Yeah, so old Robert Battison,
because from what I understand,
you
do not like Robert Pattinson.
Okay, I tell you what. I'll put it to you like this. No. No, I do not. To say I do not like him would be an adequate description of my feelings towards the actor and the person.
Okay, and the person. Wait.
Yeah.
What do you know about the person? What has he done to offend you as a person?
Ironically enough, I hear it's a hobby of his for him to go to the southern reaches of the South American rainforest, where he hunts and kills bats for fun. So to have him cast as Batman, I think not only, number one, is just completely insensitive, but number two, ignores the biggest crime of all, which we'll touch on in a moment. But you seem to think he'll be a good Batman. I feel it's only fair that because, time is always against us, I'm going to give you the lion's share of that. Right. Hit me.
You want me to
people.
defend why I think he's going to be a good Batman?
Well, no, I'm not saying why you think he might be. I'm saying here's reasons for being. You're trying to explain to me, a self-professed idiot, why he's going to be a good Batman. I'm saying he's not going to be. I'm saying
we should
for a moment. I'm going to open my mind and allow you to convince me.
Well, let's go ahead and fill in the audience and let everybody know that when the news came out that he is either the front runner or has already been picked, depending on if you believe, I think it's Variety or The Hollywood Reporter. I think they have somewhat conflicting reports on that. But he is either the front runner or the lead. So we're just going to assume that he has already been chosen. And when we heard that news, I think it's safe to say that my reaction was a little bit more positive than yours. And in the sense that, look, I've been on Twitter saying that I kind of would have been okay with them going with a no-name person. Or somebody who has had relatively little, big blockbuster succce.
Sure.
Sort of going the Marvel route, where, instead of, they didn't, with Captain Marvel, they didn't go with Angelina Jolie, or the biggest name on the planet. They didn't go with, Jennifer Lawrence or something like that. They went with, somebody who people knew, but they knew from independent hits, or they knew from smaller films. And I kind of would have been okay with them doing, pulling a Tom Holland or somebody like that out of just obscurity and giving it to Batman. Because look, it's Batman. It doesn't need a big name. It's Batman. But if they're going to go with a younger, and I say that as somebody who's in their early 30s as opposed to, a 50-year-old Ben Affleck. But if they're going to go with somebody, maybe in their early 30s or late 20s or in that kind of range there, so that he can be around for a decade, then yeah, I'm okay with Robert, because I think he has done, after Twilight, which is a film that both of us do not like. I've only seen the first one, and Whereas you've seen all of the Twilight films. Do you want to explain your thoughts on those Twilight films?
Okay, right. So this is where I am going to take off my silly hat for a second. Okay, I'm gonna put that over there, and I'm gonna put my actual critic hat on because again, I for the sake of entertainment, I'm gonna keep the silly hat close, but I'm gonna try and at least give it a fair shake. So, I didn't like the Twilight films for a number of reasons. Number one, because the story is so transparently simplistic and derivative. It also takes itself way too seriously for this kind of thing. And really, finally, Robert Pattison is the reason why, most of the world's ills are here. And why the inevitability of death is of small comfort, because even in death, Robert Pattison will be there to haunt your dreams. So, yeah. Okay, so really it's just because I don't think overall the execution of the films was particularly good. I don't think the acting was particularly good. I don't think the special effects were absolutely atrocious. And in terms of... Right, so what's the sell here? It's this couple and their journey from meeting to overcoming adversity. I don't care about this couple.
What adversity did they end up overcoming? Like I said, I didn't see the rest of them, so spoil away.
Well, no, you saw the first film, so you got the gist, which is...
Other vampires hate them for some reason. Well, and then there was a really long baseball game. Am I remembering that right?
There was a baseball game in the first game, and it's a way of showing off, oh, look, they can jump really high. Or rather, what they can do is we can position the camera right on the floor, and they can jump over the camera, and it'll make it look like they're jumping really high.
Yes, yeah.
And we can make them look like they're running really fast if we just stick them on a treadmill, blow some wind, and put a green screen behind them.
For sure.
Because that looks real. The adversity is that they can't be together because she's a human, he's a vampire, vampires eat humans, and they find it really difficult not to eat humans, blah, blah, blah. By the time of the second film, though, a lot of it has been this idea of, right, we're going to pick sides. We're going to create this artificial conflict between werewolves and vampires. Mm-hmm. And then by the last few films, it's different factions of vampires.
Okay.
And you go, but again, I don't care because the reasons behind a lot of these don't make any sense. Now, that's all kind of irrelevant. The relevant issue here, though, is Pattison, because Stewart, fine, whatever.
You liked Stewart in that?
No, as in she can do whatever she wants. She's not up for debate here. Unless they cast her as Poison Ivy, in which case, yeah, you bet your sweet ass I've got a problem with that. Or Catwoman. Imagine that. Imagine if they boom, reunion.
Well, we already know that those two have deep chemistry.
They went out for a period, yes, according to many fan magazines. Yes, they had they had relations of a girlfriend boyfriend
dirty
sort.
When you call it relations.
Relations. See, by the way, I think Bat Dad would be a better pick for the next Batman than Robert Pattison. I genuinely think he would capture more of the essence of the character than Robert Pattison. I genuinely believe that.
Okay.
But anyway, I feel like I've kind of explained the reason why I'm a little bit exacerbated by the idea of a Twilight star, someone that had zero chemistry with his main co-star, who delivered a lackluster performance in a lackluster film series that... at least on paper, I've seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I dug that. Lost Boys.
Yeah,
I dug
Buffy's
that
great.
too. So vampires can be cool. It's just that they weren't. And, and again...
Well, they sparkled.
Again, this is the thing, and I've already said this, and I'll say this right from the get-go. If Robert Pattison wants to refund me the money for the movie tickets, DVDs, and all the merchandise, and write me a written apology...
You own the DVDs?
I don't own them now.
Oh,
they were
you
gifts.
bought the DVDs?
I had to buy the DVDs, yes.
Oh, well.
You got to buy them something.
You sound a bit like a closet Twilight fan.
They weren't for me. More to the point, if I still had them, I'd take them back to get the money back for them, but I can't do that.
Well, okay.
So,
look, I am with you that Twilight is a bad film. I did not see the sequels. I hear they're not great, but based entirely on that first film, I'm with you. Like, but the problem isn't. I don't think the problem in that film specifically was Robert. Like, I mean, if I'm going to say that anybody had an issue, like I had an issue with anybody in that, it was Kristen Stewart, who like didn't even have a character. Like, yeah, I'm with you that Robert's acting was wooden and he was kind of creepy, and I mean he was super creepy. He watched her sleep. That's not good. But like at least that's a character trait.
What, being creepy?
Yeah, at least that's something. And
how is that a character trait?
Well, what character trait did Bella, whatever her name is, the girl in it? What did she have? Like, what's her character trait? Just being passive?
Well, because you've actually just reminded me, because again, I do such a good job of suppressing Twilight from my memory. I forgot, I did a 20-minute review. I think I did a 20 or a 25-minute review on it.
Okay.
Part of the review centered around the fact that Bella and Edward, as characters, whatever. In terms of the acting, though, there are some really weird moments. Like, you watch the interactions between them and you go, I was a teenager once. I don't remember doing any of this.
But were you a teenager dating, like, a 300-year-old vampire?
No. But that's not the point. They're supposed to be teenagers. It doesn't matter if he's 300 years old. He's still supposed to be essentially a teenager.
Okay, we've established that we don't like Twilight.
We don't like Twilight. Newsflash.
But the problem is that it's not his fault. Like, no, it's not Robert's fault. He was given nothing to work with. He was given a character whose main character trait was to be creepy, was to just kind of stand there watching somebody sleep. That's not his fault. And what he did, and this is really the important part. It's not what you do when you're in, like, the big blockbusters. It's what you do after them. And he spent the last decade going and playing really interesting parts, seeking out directors that he grew up loving to be, even if it's not like a flashy part. I don't think any of his movies have opened in more than 3,000 theaters. And on purpose, like most of them are much smaller films. The Lost City of Z, Good Times, High Life, which is out right now. Like all of these films are much smaller, and it's basically him showing that he has range, that he's doing other stuff. And you just have to watch any of the clips of The Lost City of Z to on YouTube or anything like that with him in it to see, like, it's not Edward from Twilight. He is a completely different person. Or, the reviews for The Lighthouse, which is coming out. That's by the person who did The Witch. Everybody is talking about how great he is in it and how it's just it's a world away from what people expect from. And here's the thing. Here's the important part. He's already played Bruce Wayne. Now, that person wasn't named Bruce Wayne, but in Cosmopolis, which is a really interesting film about a billionaire who basically drives in a limo from point A to point B, kind of meeting people along the way, he's basically already the Bruce Wayne role. So, I'm just saying that if you haven't seen any of the films since Twilight, and I understand, it's... Those are huge films, and he's done a lot of smaller films, so I get it. A lot of people haven't, and a lot of people probably agree with you that, their last taste of Robert was Edward in those dumb Twilight films. But we can't hold him to that one role when it was so long ago.
Okay, and unfortunately, I have bad news for you, my friend. that was part of my argument, but that's not the killer blow of my argument.
Okay, what's the killer blow?
No, because I anticipated that you might know that was going to what my argument was going to hinge on, the fact that I'm hanging it all on Twilight. Okay,
You are.
I'm not, because here's the sad and honest truth about Robert Pattison, and this is the part you're really not going to like, because I'm going to say, do you know what? You're probably right about a lot what you just said. He's had a long time to perfect his art. He's had a long time to experiment with other characters, to test his limits as an actor, to work with different directors, to try different themes, different feels, different productions.
Definitely.
He lacks a critical component to be Batman. It's the same reason why Ben Affleck lacked a critical component to be Batman. Same with George Clooney. Same to a certain extent with Val Kilmer. A good Batman, and Adam West, I will have to throw him in there. Michael Keaton and Christian Bale.
So basically just two good Batmans.
Well, yeah, because they both had, along with Kevin Conroy, and the character that he portrayed in the cartoons is this. There has to be an underlying, barely contained rage to the Batman character. There has to be. Because the mythos of Batman is formed in this one moment where a child exposed to the most extreme grief he has ever experienced hardens to the point where he will forge himself one day into what is effectively the most well-honed, well-balanced, not mentally obviously, but well-balanced in terms of the keen scientific mind, the peak of physical perfection, is driven by a barely contained rage. That is only kept in check because of a self-imposed sense of justice that he keeps by not killing people, but anything else is almost justified as a result.
Yeah.
Robert Pattison, for me, and again, I'll level this criticism at Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Adam West, and Ben Affleck. They all lacked that sense of barely content. They all felt like people putting on a batsuit and pretending to be, you know, whatever.
I think some of that comes from, a lot of that will come from the writing, but also because, a lot of the characters you mentioned, especially like the Val Kilmer and George Clooney Batman, the Joel Schumacher Batman films, I don't like those versions of Batman were not written to be that kind of character. So, like, you can't really. I don't think it's fair to.
But that's where you counter. That's where you counter with the Kevin Conroy character, even in the DC animated cartoon, which is aimed squarely at the feet of children. There's no denying that fact, none whatsoever.
Well, some of them are. Some of them are a little more adult.
A little more, but they're still aimed at children to sell toys. You cannot dispute that.
No, fair. That's fair. That's fair.
So we take that as so you can't do blood, you can't do the worst of imagery, you can't do a lot of things.
Right. Yeah.
Yet, that Batman, even in an incarnation where he's... The best example I can actually give is a cartoon called, I believe it's Injustice for All, and it's a two-parter. At the end of the cartoon, Batman's been captured, so he can't do any particular sneaky stuff, he can't do violent stuff. What he ends up doing is actually a lot of his detective work and his trickery, mental trickery. But at the end, he has a moment with the Joker that is not insanely violent, but you can tell there's a menace to what he does. There's an intent to what he does, and it fits. Whereas in things like, let's take the most recent example, Ben Affleck's Joker, not fucking Joker. Ben Affleck's
his Batman.
His Batman. He does things like he brands people. He does things like he threw someone headfirst into a wall. He runs people over and he shoots them with Gatling guns.
Yeah.
Now,
he kills like 100 people in that movie.
Yeah, he killed a fair few people in that. For someone who doesn't kill.
Actually, to be fair, he doesn't kill that. He doesn't kill. I don't think he kills anybody in Justice League. I think it was just Batman v Superman.
Indeed,
they kind of toned him down a bunch in Justice League.
Yeah, they never explained why they thought that was a good decision. But
yeah,
whatever. Anyway, but the point is, okay, take all of that into account. When you see him talk, when you see him walk, when you see him in his Batman guise, Do you ever feel threatened by him?
Well,
is he
the
an
metal
imposing
one was
figure?
pretty threatening, but I mean, yeah, like, but I didn't buy like those Zack Snyder, films are just so self-serious that I have a hard time taking them seriously.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they take themselves almost too seriously. Like
way too seriously.
The scene that epitomized it for me was when Superman crushes the car and they both have their little face-to-face for a second. He tells him, don't, your times of vigilante-ising are over. And he goes, do you bleed? And Superman just flies off and he goes, you will. It's like, no.
That's something shot for the trailer.
The hard man doesn't talk shit after the other bloke has left. That's the least intimidating thing you can do. That's literally the thing that the worm in the gang does behind the wall as everyone else is talking, like, yeah, you guys think you're going to get away with it, but I'm going to show you. And it's like, no, that's not my Batman, dude. But to bring it back, I don't see Robert I certainly agree with you in terms of he's got a very brooding demeanor. Mm-hmm. He's got a very subdued manner, which would suit well.
He probably has a chip on his shoulder already, too, from all of those years of people like you typecasting him as Edward.
People like me. Hey, you need to get woke, sir.
Exactly like you, Lauren.
Well, but look, I will give you credit. As a Bruce Wayne character, I can kind of see where you're coming from.
Sure.
The problem is Bruce Wayne isn't the draw.
He's kind of, okay.
Batman's the draw, and it's how you carry yourself as Batman.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
What is it that makes you think he can't do that?
We had, again, because for people that don't know, we talk outside of this realm. I believe that Robert Pattison weighs about 90 pounds soaking wet. Therefore,
no.
I can't be intimidated by someone that I think I can pick up and break like a pack of uncooked spaghetti. I can't have a Batman that I think I can bully.
That Christian Bale did, like, literally right before Batman, wasn't that The Machinist?
The Machinist, and he weighed
where
70
he
pounds.
lost all that weight to be 70 pounds?
He lost a tremendous amount of weight. But Bale scares me because he's the kind of person that can put on 100 pounds and actually have to lose weight to be Batman.
I think that, this movie's coming out in, 2021?
Something like that, yeah.
We still have a couple years. And so, assuming that it starts filming next year.
Right.
Realistically. He has a full year to get jacked. And I think that's definitely what's going to happen.
So do I, brother. So in a year's time, we'll see who's more jacked.
Yeah, but you're also not getting paid, $15 million to get jacked.
Yeah, but if he's got a year, so do I. So as much as I think I can kick his ass
then what's your excuse?
Huh?
Then what's your excuse?
In terms of?
You should get more or you should be exactly as jacked as he is in the next Batman film. What's your excuse?
No, I completely agree. If by the time he comes out as Batman, I can't kick his ass, you win this argument.
I think the other more here's the thing that you're falling into, which is that every time DC announces somebody, everyone goes, "Oh, that's a terrible pick," and then we end up liking them. I'm old enough to remember this exact same conversation happening when Michael Keaton was cast as Batman back in, for the 1989 one. Everyone was like, "Mr. Mom, what are you doing?" He does comedy. He's a terrible pick. I could beat him up. He weighs 70 pounds. He's like the Machinist. But then they knew the future movies that Christian Bale was going to do. But then everybody loved him. And then everybody liked, and then same thing with Heath Ledger. It was like, nobody Brokeback Joker? We don't want to have, he's too pretty to be the Joker. And then he's perfect, and everybody loves him. He wins an Oscar for that role. And then, and we can go through the whole thing. Even Ben Affleck, I know you're not super keen on him, and neither am I, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of either of those movies, but he's arguably the best part of them.
Ooh, that's a strong claim.
But look, if you go through the reviews, most people are saying that, like, most of the reviews highlighted that, you know, Ben Affleck was pretty good in Batman v Superman. He wasn't the problem with that film. And even then, like, I think he would have been fine in a better written and directed Batman movie. Like, if it was, you know, an older Batman who's kind of over it, and it was a more interesting, you know, take on that character, then yeah, I think he probably could have nailed it. Look, he's certainly not as bad as he was as Daredevil a decade or two earlier.
Hang on. He was worse than he was in Daredevil, and I'll give you one word. No, because it's Ben Affleck. He has a certain amount of sway when it comes to the production of films. He's a director himself. He agreed to a script where the whole fight is ended with one word.
Yeah,
and it's a dumb word.
He doesn't have that much pull. He's not going to get them to completely rewrite that. I mean, he didn't even get, like, he was going to be the person directing the Batman.
It was a dumb.
He's not even doing
moment,
that. So,
and he signed on for it.
Yeah, but look, that's, again, the problem with that isn't him. The problem with that is the writing.
But at some point, you got to take responsibility for the production that you're in. It might suck that you're in one bad production.
Well, yeah, and I think he did. Did you see all the interviews during that press junket when he was sad, Ben Affleck?
I remember it fondly. But look, I think by the same token as you saying that I'm blinded by the fact that Twilight is a thing and that he was a specific, I think you are blinded by the fact that he was in Twilight, by the fact that, oh, well, we can't judge him on that performance. You're damn right I can.
We can, of course we can. But it's I think that we can't only judge him on that performance. We have to judge like his body of work. Now, I understand that you haven't seen a lot of his oeuvre, so...
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yes,
and this is one of my famous analogies that's not going to make any sense, is slanted completely towards my argument, and you're not going to be able to answer without incriminating yourself any further. But humour me. Let's say, for instance, you are an interviewer. Cyril, I want a job at Defunct Inc. Okay, you manufacture just wholesome goodness in jars. Okay, I want a job. I put my CV in front of you, and you look at my CV and you go, okay, the most recent stuff looks pretty good. Yes. Wait a minute, it says here you spent 10 years shoveling shit. Can you tell me why you spent 10 years shoveling shit, please? Mm-hmm. And I give you a reasonable half-assed explanation of, well, it was the only thing available at the time, and, you know, because I did it, it afforded me other opportunities, blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
You're still going to look at that and go, that was an awful long time shuffling shit, though.
Yeah, and then he worked his way, or then you worked your way up through other good jobs, and here you are, a qualified candidate.
But reeking of shit!
From years ago! And also, like, just for the record, shoveling shit is an important job. I think we can all agree that, like, those people work incredibly hard. And it's a thankless job. So, like, they're already, like, this is punching down. This is bullying. We should not be going after the people that shovel shit. Also, shoveling, like, there are probably people that prefer shoveling shit to, say, working in a cubicle, 10 hours a day.
Maybe. I'm not one of them.
I am not either. But then again, I'm not a guy who wants to be in a cubicle either.
I don't mind being in a cubicle. It just depends. It depends on the company you keep in the cubicle, to be honest with you.
Gal Gadot? That was another one that everyone's like, no, she's a terrible Wonder Woman. She's like 100 pounds. She's not tall enough. She doesn't look Amazonian.
No. I didn't buy that for a second just because have you seen how hot that woman is?
Oh, she's beautiful. But that's not the point. Because, like,
yes,
people like before, or Aquaman, Jason Momoa, like every one of the DC picks is met with, like, what are you guys doing? And then, for the most part, I think that the actors pull it off. I mean, Zachary Levi was, all the other, like, there's no, The reason Marvel gets away with this is because they largely cast no-names, or the big names they do cast are kind of supporting players. They're, the Don Cheadle in the background. He's not getting his own movie. Yeah, he's War something. The other War Machine, the other Iron Man. It was Terrence Howard in the first. Okay. Don Cheadle was a big actor. He's in a lot of big movies. But I don't know. I'm just saying that you need to watch Cosmopolis. For no other reason, because I think a lot of this movie is going to be the Bruce Wayne aspect of it. And then a lot of detective stuff. And I think that he's going to excel in both of those things. Or at least, I don't have a problem with him being, doing those. I can imagine him doing a good job in both of those roles. And being a good Batman. Look, and if we're being honest, just as long as he's not killing a bunch of people, I'm going to be happy.
Well, look, I think we both made cases, and
well, I made a case.
We'll have to see what the audience thinks. But
I'm super curious to see, because I haven't actually been paying attention to what the general reaction has been. I've noticed a lot of movie critics and sort of the industry people have mostly been for it, but I'm not sure about sort of the movie watcher. And I think there are probably a lot of people that'll agree with you, because the last thing they remember from him is Twilight, and rightly so. And I think that is why this is a great opportunity for him to shake that, so that he can kind of get out of that typecast role and show everybody else that he actually has quite a bit of range.
We'll see what happens, but I think we've both made reasonable arguments, and we'll have to see who comes out on top in the court of public opinion. Me. Actually no, I'm gonna do this professionally, like we talked about.
Yes.
So for those of you who tuned in the last time, there was 3 parts to this podcast. So as opposed to chopping and changing at intermittent points of the podcast on this occasion, I am going to draw this particular part of the podcast to a close. So thank you very much for listening, and be sure to tune into the next part.
It's over, folks.
Now, for those of you who have tuned into the next part, I'm assuming that you're well rested. Cyril, I presume you've been well rested.
Wow, there wasn't even a break between that. How are you going to edit that?
I work miracles every day with my editing, dude. Dude, you have no idea how the live streams help to highlight how bad I am at what I do, and why I have to edit everything together as thoroughly as I do, because the live cast was a disaster when it comes to presenting the Game of Thrones arguments. I watched it back, and it was just this jumbled mess of figures and words, and I'm like, God damn, I didn't say a damn thing that made sense in that whole live stream. Really annoying. But it was the best that I could do, and I wanted to try and strike while the iron was hot. So,
are we going to have to do the introductions?
No. We'll just go. Okay. Welcome to part 2. There you go. There's your welcome.
Part 2. You should have listened to part 1. It was okay.
It was okay. Cyril lost. He was depressed about it. But it's part 2, and he's refreshed, reinvigorated. He's picked himself up. He's going to will himself on.
Now I'm really excited to see what the next topic is.
The next topic is... oh, gosh. I guess what I wanted to get your take on... Because I know we said not really any gaming things, but...
Okay, well,
I do want to talk...
What are your thoughts here?
I do want to talk a little bit about gaming.
Okay.
Okay. Because you've got more of a finger on the pulse of gaming in general than I do.
Sure.
We've had the discussion a million times where I play the same games over and over and over again, and you play new games almost every day.
Yes.
Is there anything, in your opinion, in the gaming market that the wider audience is... I'm trying to link it to the Game of Thrones thing, because I keep trying to make this argument to people about Game of Thrones in the sense that they didn't know that's what they wanted when they wanted it. And then it became the biggest thing in the world. In gaming, people didn't know that Battle Royale was something they wanted up until a few years ago. And now it's all that a lot of gamers want. Do you see anything in the near future in some of the games that you're playing, or in a lot of the titles that, not even the ones you're playing, but in a lot of the titles that you're releasing, that are being released and that you're seeing or you're hearing buzz about? Is there anything in terms of a trend or in terms of way that games are being designed that you think is going to be a really big deal in the years to come?
In the years to come, that's a good question. I wonder about that, because we're butting up to basically another console generation. It looks like there's going to be a couple of new consoles coming out next year.
Yeah, the PS4 is slated for 2021.
PS5.
Sorry, PS5. Yeah.
I think both will probably come out next year. Both the next Xbox and the PlayStation 5. Sony said that. Earlier this year, they said that it would be over a year before the next PlayStation comes out. So I'm assuming November, or September, November of 2020, and probably the Xbox in there around the same way. Normally, this is when sort of the bigger developers would be doing more experimentation, because they, we're at the end of the cycle. There are a lot of consoles out there on the market, and it allows them to take a look at, basically just experiment and not play it as safe. So hopefully, here's a trend that I'm desperate to see from other. Do you like extreme sports games?
Yeah, I don't mind them. Back in the day, I had on the PS2, the first sports game that I remember really playing a lot of was obviously Tony Hawk, and
Sure.
Oh god, it was a jet ski game, but I can't remember what it was called. I can't remember. It will hit me later on. But yeah, those kinds of games they're fun, because they can be arcadey games that are fun if you ramp up the CPU difficulty, but they're also really good multiplayer games.
I played a game recently called Descenders. That's on, I think, PC and Xbox One right now. It might be coming to other things, I don't know. But it had such a brilliant conceit that I would be shocked if we didn't see EA and other companies trying to imitate the same thing going forward, if it at least gets big enough to be on their radar. And the idea is that it's a downhill mountain biking game. Where the idea is to get first, or at least to get to the end of the track without dying or crashing a bunch of times, but the whole thing is procedurally generated. So every time you go into a race, or every time you go into a level, it's all completely different, and at the same time, they're all the missions and stuff like that. And I would love to see SSX and some of the other series. Have that sort of thing going on, where we actually got some of the procedural elements in there, so that it wasn't just a set path or something like that. That is something I would love to see, and bring the extreme sports franchise, or bring all of those back, because I feel like they've kind of been in a lull recently, where you don't see a lot of them anymore. Activision did the Tony Hawk game. They rushed out a Tony Hawk game because they were at the end of their 15-year contract with Tony Hawk, and they didn't want to renew it. And so the game was even incomplete. They didn't even finish it, and they put it out just before, knowing that they had to have the game out there before the end of the agreement, and then right after that they could just put everything else in the game. Which is why if you buy the disc, there's barely anything on it, and then there's this huge download you have to do to get all of the rest of the content, which is terrible. But that's all just because of the license. But I'd like to see a lot of those extreme sports games kind of get resurrected and breathe new life into them with procedurally generated stuff and always online things and roguelike elements and all kinds of, the things that other genres have been doing for a while now. Because that is one of those genres that desperately needs.
Well, I saw the review, and I saw that that you were surprised by the fact that I think one of the things that you mentioned was that the fact that the maps were procedurally generated, but they didn't feel that way. They still felt, irrespective of that they had a really good ebb and flow of design. And that helped keep it feeling fresh, even though the gameplay can be sometimes a little bit repetitive.
Of course. I mean, that's just that. Yeah.
The nature of the beast.
That's
you're
just
trying
a matter
to do it to
of them
get better.
needing to add a little bit more to the trick system and stuff like that. But that's all the stuff that like SSX, did well. And I mean, for the most part, when it comes to a lot of these, extreme sports games, they're out in the middle of nowhere. Like you honestly can't tell the difference in most cases between a procedurally generated mountain and one that was, constructed by people putting rocks in specific areas and stuff like that. I mean, there aren't that many situations where you're going to notice that, especially with that kind of game. So I'd like to see more of that. When it comes to just general trends, though, especially when it comes to the big games, we're just in this sort of cycle where they're just sort of iterating on a lot of the same things over and over. And like in some cases, like the Assassin's Creed series and stuff like that, they've tried their hardest to do a big overhaul. But in a lot of cases, it's not that they're really doing anything innovative so much as they're just kind of bringing in other elements from other games that are popular this generation. And so, I don't know. I wonder if maybe, we're getting to the point now, and it's been this way for the last decade or so, where outside of, graphics to an extent, the games aren't really changing that much. We're especially compared to some, the 80s to the 90s and then the 90s to the 2000s and stuff like that. It just seems like there was so much innovation, and it's like every generation was this huge step up that I'm really interested to see what the next, like what can the PlayStation 5 or what can the next Xbox really offer that's, outside of just more of the same, better graphics, faster loading, stuff like that.
Well, you say that because that's always the question I have when it comes to gaming, because I think gaming more than any other medium has not an opportunity necessarily, because opportunity is only beget by what technology are available, what creative mind you have available, but the scope of experience that you could potentially craft is potentially limitless. It's so long as you can imagine it, you can potentially put it together, because then it's just a question of, right, how do we code it? So the question I have at the moment is, what's the next big leap in an immersive experience? Because they've obviously tried it with virtual reality, and you could argue if it's worked or if it hasn't. I don't necessarily think it's captured the imagination. I don't think it's necessarily the next step in gaming.
I think it's going to take a little time before that, because just the nature of it is that it's expensive, and for the most part, like when it came to the Oculus Rift and stuff like that, you needed a powerful computer and a powerful video card, and then also the Oculus Rift and the expensive controllers. So you're looking at like a couple $1,000s, when everything is said and done, and that's just not. It's not, something that it's an impulse item or something like that. I think that the Oculus Quest, something like that, which is $300 or $400 and doesn't need a computer and is basically just wireless. I think that sort of thing has the potential of catching on. And I think that just even on the PlayStation 4, that it was expensive, and there weren't a ton of, must-own games. A lot of the games could be played without the VR, like Resident Evil 7 and stuff like that. So I think it's more of a, like, it's like, I think right now it's like saying, like if this was 1994 and everyone was saying, the Sega CD wasn't that popular, the TurboGrafx CD wasn't that popular, the 3DO wasn't that popular, the Jaguar CD wasn't that popular. Clearly, people don't want games on CDs. Well, obviously, that is not the truth, because, the next year, everything was on CDs after that, and then DVDs and so on and so forth. So, I mean, the growing pains of the first generation of things, like, that's where, the hardest of the hardcore buy. And then, assuming that, and it seems like this is going to be the case, where Sony is going to continue, the VR stuff with the PlayStation 5, giving that as a, right at the start of that system as opposed to halfway through, and maybe a little redesigned and fixing some of the problems they had with the first version of it. I think this will eventually catch on, because it'll get to a price point where people are at least curious, where it's like, oh, okay, it's only like $150. all right, yeah, that's worth it. Look, I mean, people have bought worse for a lot more. I mean, people bought the fucking activator. Or not the activator, what was the Xbox one? The Kinect.
Yeah.
Nobody bought the activator.
No,
just
the Kinect
just
was
for the chat.
The Kinect was interesting though because it tried to get rid of the physical limitations of the hardware, which I remember because I remember some of the hardware that came out for something like the PS2, for instance, which again gives you an idea of how long that was in terms of development. Because I remember it literally one of them was literally, it was a weighted item that you put on the floor. And it's got a couple of strings that are strapped to like these weightlifting gloves that you stand with in front of you to calibrate it, and all it does is boxing games.
Yeah.
And you go, well, this is neat for 10 seconds, but when you do it, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel smooth, and more to the point, it doesn't feel fun. Like I'm having to suspend a lot of my comfort to entertain this game's need to try and seem interesting.
For sure.
Whereas the game
is really gimmicky.
Yeah, whereas the game, I always feel like a good game is the kind of thing that just makes it very, not easy is the wrong word, but it makes it very comfortable to enjoy.
I had that problem with a lot of the Wii stuff. I don't like motion controls in games for the most part. That's one of the reasons I was not into the Kinect I really don't like the Kinect. I'm with you with the oddly enough the iToy on the PlayStation 2 that was super popular in the UK and nowhere else. Like most of the games that came out for that were from European developers. They were almost always kind of aimed at that market. Like we got some of them, but the iToy was not really popular over here.
I don't remember having much. I mean, with the Wii, it was more along the lines of the obviously the Wii controllers and the nudge. I just remember the original thing was obviously people hurling the goddamn things and breaking their televisions, and again the issue with the technology being that people were not thinking very clearly when they were using them. Like they were so used to. Like, it's a bit like when people flip out at games, like you've seen those videos and you've seen the things on YouTube where people just overreact and they damage their gear and they go, oh, what have I done? And you go, well, yeah, it's not built to last. So, you have to be careful when you're doing these things, but but that's the power of gaming. People get so invested and so immersed in what they are experiencing.
For sure.
That it causes a response that I don't think... The only thing I think that you get that's even close in terms of that kind of visceral reaction to, feeling like you've been ripped off or that you've been dicked over or whatever, is when you watch a sports game. Because I don't know why you don't get that kind of visceral reaction in a movie. I don't see it very often with TV shows, albeit with Game of Thrones I've seen it. In gaming, it just seems to have a real connection with people. And I just feel like sometimes the technology hasn't really done what it could to be as imaginative as it could have been in terms of making something that not only captures the imagination and gets people emoted and invested, but wows them. Really takes them to a new space. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But that's not to say it won't happen. And
I think VR is destined to, I don't think it's going to take over. I think there are a lot of people who are thinking that, it's going to be the thing that everybody's doing. But I think it's going to be something that people do. But I think it's going to be more of an option and it's kind of a novelty. But I do think there's probably a lot of innovation that will come out of that unfortunately most people won't see. And that's no different from the indie community or anything like that. I mean, the most innovative first-person shooter in the last few years was Super Hot, and you didn't see anybody imitating that afterwards.
Yeah, I think, because again, coming back to things that people never see, if you would have said 3 years ago, one of the most popular games, sustained popular games in the world is going to be, you're plonked in the middle of a reasonably defined map, but nothing mind-blowing. You're going to run around for potentially half an hour and try and make it to an ever-shrinking circle while other people floss around you. people would have said you were mad.
I don't agree. And I'll tell you why. I think that if you had pitched that idea to me, 5 years ago, here's what I would have thought. I would have been like, well, that makes a lot of sense because A, first-person shooters are super popular, and we've already seen things like the Battlefield series and stuff like that, where it's basically a big map with 64 people. So we've already seen that people love that idea. We already know that people like open-world games because look at the success of pretty much every open-world game. And then, the idea that we want to come in first, well, we already know that people like that idea too because they've seen The Hunger Games. So, all of those ideas sort of together, that would have made so much sense. And I think my reaction at the time would have been, why aren't developers doing this? That makes so much sense.
Okay, well,
Make that game!
But I would counter that with one simple thing. If people really thought that was the thing that was going to catch fire, it wouldn't have been free to play.
No. And to be fair, arguably the first version of that, or not even the first couple versions of that, both what's the dumb zombie one, and also PUBG. Those weren't free. PUBG was like a $40 game.
No, but Fortnite, I would argue, is the one that's captured the zeitgeist. PUBG is the one that
free one.
Yeah.
But don't forget PUBG was.
I disagree because
it was insanely popular.
Look. Okay, fine. Take PUBG. Okay, fine. If you want to extend the argument to that concept, I don't think because the narrative that was being fed to a consumer, to a casual consumer, is you want better graphics, you want more emphasis on this or that or this or that. I don't think any developer sat down and tried to peddle to the public what you want is actually a reasonably rudimental looking thing with actually reasonably rudimental controls and mechanics, but what is effectively a very childlike take on a well-trodden genre. It's the old school who can stay on the map the longest, which is, a ridiculously simple concept, but executed to an almost faultless degree to the point where everyone has attempted to build a base on that concept since. So my point is that 5 years ago, pitching that idea, I don't think
we've gotten as many. I don't think we've gotten as many rip-offs, if you want to say that, or versions of that theme as I think a lot of people feared or thought we were going to. Everyone was like, "Oh, that's the only thing we're going to have, going forward." And there are a couple examples that make a lot of sense. And I think the Call of Duty has that mode. The Battlefield has that mode. That makes sense. Apex Legend is really the only one I think that came out and actually got much of a foothold.
Sure.
And that was another one though that was free and done through microtransactions and season passes and things like that. And I think that for that kind of game, it makes sense. I don't think you can do that for a lot of types of modes or games. And and to be fair, Fortnite started out as a paid, thing you pay for, and a completely different, save the world mode. The Battle Royale came late, or at least later. That was a very secondary thing that ended up taking off. Because you look at what they were wanting to do is they were wanting to put that in to advertise their base game. And then everybody liked that instead, and so well, shoot, we can make a lot of money.
Hang on, doesn't that kind of prove my point then?
How so?
The fact that wasn't the thing that they were trying to pitch. They go, no, we're just giving you this to kind of sell this thing, and they're going, well, we don't want that thing, we want this thing. I think
that the success of the success of it took them by surprise, but I don't think it should have.
Okay, fair enough.
It makes a lot of sense.
So, okay.
Look, and not every free game or free-to-play game on consoles or everything else. And by the way, the fact that Fortnite was free-to-play on consoles was really, that's the reason that because it got a much broader and younger audience because of that, as opposed to just being PUBG, for the most part, for most of its life, was just a PC game. And, I mean, on Steam, it was, breaking records. But then the Xbox One port was pretty terrible, and then the other ports were, So, like, it wasn't really until it got the broader audience. Fortnite got the broader audience because it came out and did all the console stuff and was free. And was accessible. Like, I think the graphics in Fortnite are pretty good, to be honest. But, I mean, I get that they're not super realistic and stuff like that. They're cartoony and, intentionally. And I think that, they, like, everything about it, like the gameplay and all that other stuff, is sort of built to be accessible to kind of the casual and the everyday player, as opposed to just the hardest of the hardcore, which would gravitate towards PUBG or the Call of Duty 1 or something like that.
Okay. But, I mean, just coming back to the question, though, which is, in terms of predictions of the future, and in terms of what you would like to see,
what if I want to see?
Well, because that was the question, and I want to try and, I'm the host, so I suppose I'm trying to maintain a steady narrative here, if that's my job, if that's my... I don't know. I go off on tangents all the time when I talk to myself, but that's because I'm insane. I'd like to think you're bringing an element of sanity to this show. Unless you're a figment of my imagination and I've been talking to myself and imagining half of this conversation, in which case, to the people listening to this, I hope it made sense.
I've seen movies that have that plot twist.
Yeah, but it's not very entertaining when the audience can't see the other side of the conversation. You're going, I don't know what he's doing. I guess the reason I asked that question is because you've alluded to it, the new console generation is not all that far away. It's still not here, but it's
a year or so away.
It's on the horizon, and people are already beginning to speculate pretty fiercely as to what is coming and what they want from it.
Sure.
What I'm trying to figure out, though, is where they can go, because it's one thing to kind of complain about the fact that there's a lack of innovation and there's a lack of like I was saying, true inspirational new ideas and new boundaries to break and blah 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 blah. But it's another thing to actually go to them.
From the big players, for sure.
Yeah, but it's another thing to go up to them and say, here's what I want. Here's an idea for you. Here's what I want to see. Mm-hmm. And I've got to be honest, though. I rack my brain a lot thinking about what's the next big thing I want to see. And genuinely, the best idea that I can come up with is probably the worst. Which is, the next phase of gaming for me is I want to feel like I'm actually in the game. I want to go full Tron. And that's nowhere even near possible.
In what way?
Well, again, full Tron, I want to be able to walk into a room, it to go dark, for the grids
like a holodeck?
For the grid to fire up all around me, little blue grids around me everywhere, and then slowly but surely the definition improves and increases, the light brings up, and suddenly I'm I'm face to face with Superman. He tells me he needs my help to go take down Doomsday, and we both fly to the scene of the incident. Oh, but by the way, not only that, to your point, there's a BMX race going on. Well, we'll take care of Doomsday, and then we'll go BMXing Superman. How does that sound? But anyway, point being is, like a truly immersive experience, the kind of thing that really does take you out of your realm and put you somewhere else. The way a good book does, the way a great movie does, but gaming to take it to because I don't think movies can ever do that really. Is it 4G? Is that the experience where it's like air and smells and ice and stuff that they try and pump into the theaters and stuff?
Maybe I have not heard that name.
There's cinemas in this country. You must have them in America. But anyway, point being is that they shake the sea. They have dust. They have wind stuff, and what have you. They try to give you as clear an experience as possible, like you're actually there. But it's still, you still like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I'm being blown by cold air. Now I'm cold.
Right.
This is inconvenient. Whereas,
but how do you do that even in a video game?
Well, that's why it's such a bad idea, because it's like, well, how would you go about it then? And any idea, any suggestion that you could proffer is, either a tremendously expensive endeavor, because you're effectively converting a part of your house into just being a game room, which I know some people do, but it's just not feasible. Or you have to be. You have to take it to...
Especially in a generation where people are playing stuff on their phone.
Or you have to take it to the next level with the VR with basically just accessories galore. You have a chair, you have a VR headset, you have sensors that plug into your hands and your feet, and everything that they can possibly do to literally disconnect you from whatever you're doing and connect you to whatever they've got going on. But aside from that, I don't have anything to suggest, but I know that I want something different.
Well, let me tell you. Well, boy, let me tell you. I don't even know what the specs or anything on the PlayStation 5 is going to be, but you are going to be disappointed if that is what you're shooting for, because that is not coming.
Well, look,
next.
I mean, even something as small as, because we talked about Crackdown the other day for a video that I'm writing right now. Crackdown 3, I remember a big selling point of that game prior to its release was the fact that some of the buildings, if not all of them, would be destructible due to a combination of using multi-console processing power. That was the new concept.
The power of the cloud.
And yet, when it was released, it's not a thing. Now, call me a little bit.
It's a thing in one of the modes.
Let me get there. Call me a little bit picky. Call me a little bit spoiled. But I would have thought that for this generation, a bit of building destruction wouldn't have been the hardest thing to do, because of. I seem to I remember. Is it Red Faction?
Red Faction. Yeah, Red
I
Faction.
remember distinctly that one of the features that the second or the third installment of that game boasted, that you could use railguns. Obviously, not every gun, but certain guns.
You could do the first, even in the first one, you could do all.
Well, there you go. So the point of that is, but obviously there's parts of the map that are built in such a way so that you can't compromise the rest of the map and not finish missions and stuff.
It was very. That's very gimmicky.
Well, look, let me put it to you this way. As much as
you can destroy all the buildings, by the way, in Fortnite. I'm just saying.
Okay, well there you go. But it's with a pickaxe, and it looks realistic. Would be about the opposite term that I would use.
No, of course not. It's a cartoon.
Exactly, but that's my. But I appreciate the sentiment behind the build mechanics and the mining mechanics of that. But No Man's Sky is probably the closest that I've known of a main of a game that's been released to a mainstream audience where they tried to propose something different and tried
that was
to
super ambitious,
but ultimately under-delivered at release, but then developed over time. But
apparently, like what they've done in the last, I think, 2 years has made it kind of an incredible experience. I think there's even VR mode, which I'm just saying.
True.
If you were to buy it now, I don't think anyone would be that disappointed. But yeah, I totally get why people were disappointed at the time, because they oversold that game so much early on, and then it came out maybe not full. And like the developer is a team of like 3 people. You kind of had to see that coming. But
I guess that the thing that I admire about though is that I get the impression, and I could be wrong because obviously I wasn't there when they were making the game.
Sure.
I get the impression though that it's one of the few times in recent years where a developer sat down, a mainstream. I don't want to say indie because I get that indie developers often think of a simple idea and they try to execute it to the best of their ability. But the point I'm making though is that a game designer of a mainstream game sat down and said, right, well, not when they developed as well, by the way. I understand that they picked up Steam and they got picked up by other publishers and things like that, and they got other funding and blah, 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 blah. But they sat down and they said, right,
Sony did publish it, but it was an independent project.
But they sat down and they said, right, what can we do? What can we do that every gamer has either imagined that they could do or dreamt that they could do? And let's just focus on at least delivering that. And one of the things that I know, because every Star Wars game I've ever played, every exploration game I've ever played, I've looked at the horizon and I've gone, I want to go there.
Sure.
I want to go. And you go, oh, wait, I can't. There's this wall blocking me. I can't. There's no mechanic for me to be able to go there. That game said, you want to go to that planet? You can go to that planet if you want. Now, I get that gamers get bored of that gimmick very, very quickly, because they get to the planet and there's nothing to do.
It's a better elevator pitch than it is a game.
Yeah.
Or at least a game. That idea sounds better than it is.
Well, it's something to experience, but once you've experienced it, it's kind of done. You need to then have some meat on the bones. But the fact is, that it's something that I admired because it's one of those things where you go, do you know what? If you can pull that off, that's bloody impressive.
For sure.
And I guess that's the closest thing that I could pitch to the next generation is try and give me experiences that deep down I want to do. The Alien Isolation thing that came up and everyone was like losing their minds for first-person, well-designed horror. Deep down, everyone wanted to be in those movies but have the safety of not actually being dead when they get caught by the alien. Yeah. That's why those games work. Then you have the first-person shooters where you get to be the Arnies of the world. You get to be the Sylvester Stallones. But again, you don't have to die. To your point, the BMX games, those games work because you get a sense of adrenaline of going downhill at fast speeds and jumps and tricks and stuff, but without worrying about getting a femur contusion. Sure.
Though, by the way, if you mix a lot of those racing games with VR, you get a real-world substance on you called vomit. So it's very interactive in that sense.
That's pretty immersive.
Oh my god, those, like, what was it, Drive Club, like, when that came out for VR early on, that was almost impossible to play for more than a couple minutes.
Yeah, you get the impression that they don't test it for very long when they do that, do they?
Yeah, they weren't fully ready for that.
They kind of race for 30 seconds, look around the cockpit of the car and go, yeah, this looks great.
Yeah.
What else are we doing? And you go, hang on a second, have you finished a race in this? And they go, well, no, we'll just, we'll let people figure that out as they go. Okay, that sounds like a good idea.
I think the other thing, though, is that when it comes to the big games, when it comes to all of the, especially when it's going to be for the next generation stuff, where it's, everyone's going to want it to be bigger, and everything's going to have to be 4K, if not higher than that. That's all going to be very expensive for the developers, and that's one of the reasons why we've seen a lot of developers playing it safe, where it's a lot of sequels or it's a lot of things like that. I mean, even. Like, I give a lot of credit to Sony this generation for devoting a lot of time towards new IPs, more so than any of the other first-party publishers. And a lot of their best stuff this generation has been, original IPs, or even some of their older IPs done in a completely different way. But like when I credit Spider-Man or something like that, it's not because it's a brand new fresh idea. It's done incredibly well, better than any of the other Spider-Man games before it. But it's not like it was this idea that this super innovative idea, and I'm not sure we're going to see, like, when they're spending that much money, I'm not sure we're going to see a lot of those super innovative ideas, because the gamers at this point, and it's been like this for a long time, to be honest, but gamers, they want what they want. And like, I mean, even Fortnite, it was pretty simple in its design, and not, it wasn't, next generation graphics, and it wasn't, all of this incredible stuff you couldn't do anywhere else. I suspect you could have probably easily done almost everything in Fortnite, if not everything in Fortnite, on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. There wasn't any reason that it had to be on this generation. So, I'm definitely excited to see the show pieces, but I wonder if we're at the point, sort of like with movies, where a lot of it's just going to be iterations on sort of what we've already seen.
No, I think you're right, but I also think that you've kind of touched on something that I would agree with, to the extent of going back, finding old mechanics or old games that had the nub of an idea but didn't have the technology or the development to see the idea through to a proper... Like, the best example I can give of that, really, is the most recent Spider-Man game, because the original...
The one I was just talking about?
Sorry?
Oh, yes. The one I was just talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because I played the one that came out on the PS1, and I remember thinking it was dope-tastic. But you play it now, and you go...
Those Neversoft.
Wow, this thing does not... It does not handle.
There's a lot of fun stuff.
It's slow, it's sluggish, and all the rest of it. Sure. And now you play a more fully realized, more polished, honed version of what is effectively that concept.
Right.
And it works.
20 years
later. To
your
point, it works. And I do think that there are games that you could go back and potentially revisit and, like you say, if not update, but certainly take an idea or a concept, take a power, take a move, take an action, take a mechanic, and go, wouldn't it have been cool if we could have done this? Well, how's about we do that now? Let's just do that now, because I think you're right. People, gamers number one are a sucker for nostalgia. I think we're all guilty of that. But there's something to be said about the simple things being the most fun. There's certain games that I play just because there's something I can do in that game that I think is badass. Yeah. Even if it's if it presents more or less the same experience as every other game in its genre, but there's just a little thing that it does that other games don't do, and you go, okay, you can stay in my collection just because you do that.
Also, I think that for the most part, if we're going to use, because you brought us into this with Game of Thrones. If we're using the example of Game of Thrones, the thing that that made Game of Thrones memorable, it wasn't its innovation when it came to its themes or any of that stuff. I mean, for the most part, a lot of it you had seen, a lot of those themes and locations and things like that you had seen in other sort of fantasy shows and movies and whatnot. The reason that it caught on the way that it did is because of its unpredictability. Is because they were ready to kill people at just the drop of a hat without you notice or without you seeing it coming, and people liked that because it really kept you on your toes, and then all the politicking and stuff like that. So it really just came down to, more than anything, the storytelling, and and that's something that gaming needs, is continuing to mature with. Is how to tell the convincing stories while also making them interactive in the sense where you're not just, it's just a linear path where you're only, getting fed the story, where it feels like maybe you're the one in control of the story. That's something that the original BioShock did so well, which is that it played on that convention of, you're in control of this, but you're not actually in control of anything. I mean, that's the big twist of that is that, would you kindly, you're going to have to do it anyway because you're the one doing it. You're the one playing it. There is no actual, no matter what choice you make, it's still a very binary linear thing.
Yeah, they play with that in Infinite as well, where they make you there's a few choices in there that give gamers the idea that maybe you're going to alter things, and in fact, it has nothing to do with the ending at all. Yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, because again with the I'm going to plug, because hey, fuck it, it's my channel. I'll plug whatever I like. The video that I've got coming up in the top 5, I have tried to think of that sort of thing. I've tried to think, right, well, what could you dredge it from the past? What could you not revolutionize, but what could you just adapt to a different genre or bring up to date, and it would be an amazing experience? Just because you would have treated it, hopefully, with the respect it should have gotten in the first instance. And it's not easy.
I have an idea. Oh, I know. Drop 100 Twisted Metal cars onto an island. God. Silly Cyril resurges again. I'd tell you, I don't know.
I'd tell you what, though.
But
I would like to hear a pitch of you to that vein, though. Because again, you have a at least in my world an unrivaled knowledge of video game history. So an idea from you as to a game that you think, do you know what would be badass if you could take either the theme, concept, story, or the framework of this game, but drop it into this genre now? I think you'd have a mind blower of a game.
I think of that in the sense of there being multiplayer, the just big online battles. And I think I've always liked the idea of. I'm sure you haven't, but there was a Konami game back in the 90s called Poi Poi. In Japan, it was called Poiter's Point.
I actually have a vague memory of that.
But the idea of it was that you could play. It was basically a 4-person game, but there were no weapons except for all of the things on the ground, which was like a lot of rocks, and like you could pick up a tree and things like that. It was just whatever's lying on the ground, and whoever was the last person surviving. I think that sort of thing where it's not guns. I would like to see. I'd like to see that brought into that, or was it Power Stone, the Capcom franchise, which was another 4-player game, but it was a fighting game where everybody was trying to get these stones, and then that would power them up, a little bit like the MCU, and Power Stone, but like do that with 100 people. That'd be great.
Okay.
But like, I guess when it comes to it, it's hard to say, what's the big innovative idea you want to see, or even what's like, there are a lot of really old games that I'm surprised they didn't come back, but not necessarily because the technology wasn't quite there. I think they'd probably be better now, but I mean, they're just, developers and publishers have such a bad habit of dropping franchises for no reason, there's probably a reason.
Okay, fair enough.
But I don't know. I'd have to think about that. But I think that I feel confident about where we're going, and hopefully we get a lot of new IPs and a lot of some innovation. And it doesn't, it's broad enough to where it allows the indies to keep innovating and doing what they do.
Well, I
think a lot of the innovation comes from the indies.
I can give you one pitch.
Okay.
The best way I can simplify it down to is imagine Titanfall, but as an RPG.
Okay.
So you have your character, you have your mech. You and your mech travel through a doesn't have to be a series of maps. It could just be one open world map if that's what you want to do. Witcher 3 style, cool. Doing tasks, upgrading your mech, working, maintaining it, blah 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 blah, and giving there's some sort of story mapping that out. I just think the idea of having a fully customizable, fully adaptable mech that you can buy parts for or craft parts for, and yet travel the world like Ronin style. I think that would be fucking, especially if you could make it so it's a mech with a sword. That'd be fucking sweet. But that's pure wish fulfillment. I don't know how you could make that interesting to anyone but me. I just love the idea of that. Having and if it can fly, dope. Make it fly.
But isn't that what Anthem is trying to be?
I understand from people that have played it. It's a good concept foiled by the reality of the game industry, which is we have a deadline to meet. You guys have faffed about with this concept for X amount of years. It's time to actually get this down on paper. They got it down on paper and it didn't translate very well.
Sadly, not a thing exclusive to the gaming industry. A lot of summer blockbuster movies have been foiled by that exact problem.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty confident going into the next generation because I think that, for the most part, I guess I'm not going to be that disappointed if the next generation isn't just a bunch of like experiences we haven't done before, because for the most part I feel like we're not at that point anymore, except for maybe like VR or something like that. I think we're kind of like we're a bit more of the coasting where we're just kind of improving on the hardware at this point, and making it easier to do some of the things that people like doing from the previous generation. So I assume that's mostly what's going to come from that. And just as long as they keep giving us interesting ideas, and hopefully it'll all work out.
Well, we'll see what happens. I'm quietly confident that they'll pull something out of the bag. It's just that I would like to be one of these people that has a suggestion rather than just complains all the time. But it is tricky because then you've got to think of something that actually makes tangible sense. And I mean, my pitch, for instance, there is pretty one-dimensional at best. It's just that I want a more refined experience to experience something that I want, but that's not what the gaming industry can pin its hopes and dream on. But
and even like even like the mech idea, like, I mean, that's super interesting, but I'm not sure that would even be that innovative. Just from like the gameplay perspective.
Well, no, you say that. I mean, I've not experienced a game where because I never played this game. But I know that in the 360 generation, specifically Kinect, they were trying to push Steel Battalion, that was the name of it, because it had a previous generation game that had this massive controller.
Two previous generation games. Yeah, the controller has like 23 buttons.
Correct,
it's huge.
Yeah. So that was a big selling point for that game, and part of the reason for the selling point is because of how extensive the control was. It was this fucking console, basically, that you got to press all the buttons, and it had a joystick, and it had a trigger, and it had a blah, 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 blah.
It had multiple joysticks. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was basically like you were in command of it, perfectly. Like you were...
Yeah.
Like you actually had the thing in front of you. It was great.
So to your point,
I played it in the convention.
What's innovative about 20 buttons versus just 4? Well, nothing. But it does change the experience drastically.
Sure.
It does mean that you feel... Again, it's the sense of feel. I now feel like I'm in it. Even if I know I'm sat in my living room, even if I know I'm staring at a television screen, the fact that I still have a sensation of it.
I own a Rock Band guitar that has 102 buttons.
Why does it have so many?
Well, it's because it's emulating all of the strings and frets of a real guitar.
Christ,
because it's the Pro
really?
guitar. Yeah, because the Rock Band 3 had the Pro mode where they would actually chart exactly how to play
actual
each
chords
song.
And actual riffs.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they released a couple of different versions. They released a real guitar, like, with the actual strings and like a real guitar that you could plug into an amp and stuff like that. And I already actually own an electric guitar in real life, but that obviously did not work with it. But the that version was like $300 or $400. I was like, nah, I'm not going to get that. But the like, it was $150 or something for the Pro guitar with all the buttons. I was like, you know what? I'll go with that. And I enjoyed that for a little bit. I'm not sure I got my $150 out of it, but that was still a cool. It was still a cool little thing, and it is definitely immersive in a way that you wouldn't get with with the 5-button fake plastic guitar or a controller or anything else. But also, it's super gimmicky, just like that controller in Steel Battalion.
Sure, but I mean, to come back to the pitch would be, look, give me something that is a little bit more involved, a little bit more in depth, and expand on the world, giving me things to do in it. Because again, I think you have to cut games some slack sometimes. I think people want too much from games sometimes, and that's why I forgive a game if it's narratively weak, but it has good gameplay, or if it's got maybe not so good gameplay, but narratively it knocks it out of the park, because you can tell that the developers only have so much time, resources, and even just sitting down, they have a concept, and the concept maybe leans more heavily towards, I have a really great idea for a story, or I'm talented at putting games together, so I can make gameplay seamless, and I can make it fun, and blah, 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 blah. So I understand that again, my pitch is perhaps more centered towards gameplay than narrative, so you might end up having a weak game that tells what's the point? Because ultimately you need to have a reason to why you're playing the game. It can't just be because you do cool shit. That's gaming is part of that, of course, but you need a reason, and that's why most games supplement it with a story, leaderboards. In the case of the most recent iterations of games, you have collectibles and you have customizables and things like that to get people invested and to get people coming back. I'd have to think of a reason to give people to want to play that game. I don't have that right now. I'm not a game developer, but
right, yeah, it's it's hard to come up with, what's a good innovative idea? It's hard to come up with that on the spot because, I mean, there are people paid way more money than I'm getting paid to, to do that for a living, and they're failing at it. So, like, at a point, a lot of the innovation that comes isn't like a big overhaul in, like, even No Man's Sky. Like, the mechanics and all the things you did in it were very familiar. It was just the ambition of what you were doing in it that was so innovative, or that was so enticing to a lot of people.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm excited to see where the future goes, though.
We'll see. Well, that seems like a natural segue point, because we're heading up to the end of, sadly, what is the end of part 2 of this. What do we call this? I don't think it's a podcast. I think it's a defunct experience. It's a cornucopia of defunct. It's I don't know. It's an amalgamation of something. There's a word I'm looking for. It begins with D.
You're overselling this, just like the PlayStation 5.
There's no way you can oversell the PlayStation 5, dude. I've already seen it. Or at least someone's.
Would you remember those commercials from PlayStation?
Before you go, because I'm gonna have to bring the segue just to make sure.
Sorry.
No, you're all good. But anyway, so for people listening to part 2 of this, thank you very much for tuning in for part 2. Please stay tuned for part 3, and of course, be sure to check out part 1. Go subscribe to Defunct Games channel, and also send him presents, money, and/or planes. Cool. Thank you very much for tuning in. Mostly money. Yeah, because the plane's not. Once you send in the plane, you're going to have to fuel it, and you're going to need money for that. So people, why would you send in the plane? Think of the taxes alone. Why would you do that to him?
It's terrible.
Okay, and we take a breath, and hey, welcome to part 3 of the podcast, and Cyril is still here with us. Thank you very much once again for saying it. You were saying something. I rudely interrupted you. You were going to say...
Yeah, do you remember that this would have worked at the end of the last part better, but it'll work here too. Do you...
Come on, you got to give me... I'm trying to keep a structure here. Come on. I'm trying to run this madhouse.
Do you remember the PlayStation 2 commercial where they didn't show anything about the PlayStation 2, but it was like, in the future, PlayStation 9 will attach to your brain, and you'll go on this like LSD experience. Do you remember that commercial?
No, I don't think we had that one over here.
The PlayStation 2 commercial was basically just buy the PlayStation 9 in 70 years.
Sounds like a weird commercial.
That's one of the ideas that we need to do, that we need to figure out is how to do the reviews of old television commercials.
Well,
because that's a lot of fun.
Actually, that brings me on to the last thing I wanted to ask you, by the way.
Oh.
Well, because okay, so to clue people in, how I think about how I put together my podcast when I record them rather than the live streams that I've been doing recently. When I sit down and think of a podcast, I usually try to think of at least 3 different subjects to talk about, and 3 different topics within those subjects, 3 different topics, 3 different subjects within those topics. Because then I think you've got 3 distinct parts of a podcast, and then hopefully there's something for everybody. So we've covered the hottest topic in the world right now, Battison, why it's a bad idea. We've covered the future of gaming. You heard it here first.
Future of game. We've nailed the future of gaming.
If anything happens that Cyril didn't say, it's a filthy, dirty lie. Your eyes and ears are lying to you. So we come to the last thing, which is another thing that you're hopefully well versed in, which is the future of content production. In like for smaller people like you and I, like me, to a lesser extent you, like the widespread, the explosion of content that's produced by people who 10 years ago, 15 years ago wouldn't have had a hope in hell of producing anything because they just didn't have access, and then platforms come out of the woodwork. Suddenly you have somewhere to put stuff if you want to put it there.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Why don't you like that? I know why.
No,
it's
I think I probably
like
have
the Halcyon Show come up and show you. That's what it is. It's. I don't have an insult. Sorry, you interrupted. You were going to say. So yeah, the future of what I want to discuss here is how you see it all cut, because we touched on this in a conversation recently, but I have a theory about how social media as a whole is going with the introduction of certain technologies. But as far as content creation is concerned, and the sheer number of it, the sheer size, breadth, and width of it, how do you feel about it?
Bad. We're all doomed.
There you go. That brings this part of the podcast to a close. We're doomed. Go home. Kiss your parents, loved ones, significant others goodbye. Send all your money to Cyril immediately. There's no use in keeping it now. You heard it here.
I mean, I know that sounds like a joke, but I don't think it is. I'm kind of super pessimistic about where we are. Just when it comes to first, I don't like the term content creation, because that's such a broad term. I mean, anything is content creation at this point, right? I mean, you know. But
it does apply to a broad spectrum, because you're seeing more people producing music, more people producing art, more people producing videos, more people producing blogs and opinion pieces and all the rest of it. It's an explosion of content. There's no getting around it, because
it is an explosion of content.
Every avenue has seen an increase, because literally anyone with an internet connection can do it these days, and people are discovering ways that they can get involved.
Here's the problem. No matter what I say here, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite.
Welcome to the club, buddy.
Like, hey,
how many times do we have conversations?
At the beginning of this conversation, didn't you start out by saying that you started the website in 2001? Like, yeah, in general, it's fine. Like, it's fine that I have no problem with, you know, where we're at, in the sense of like, oh, you know, YouTube, or, you know, the various blogging programs, or Instagram, or whatever, gives you the opportunity to voice your opinion. I think that's fine, though I don't know if I necessarily want to hear a lot of it. And I think that in some regards it's probably bad, because it gives off the impression, it gives off the wrong impression to the people creating stuff. So I don't know. Well, I don't know how to answer your question, because I think that it's probably pretty bad.
Well, no,
I'm pretty negative about, because it's changed the way. Look, I'm from the old school, and I think, like, when I think of a review, we'll narrow it down to just like reviews. When I think of a review, I think of, you know, like the old EGM reviews, or the old, you know, magazine reviews, or even like, you know, like, it doesn't have to be video game, like Siskel and Ebert arguing about, you know, but them actually having, like, these people have played the games or watched the movies and actually had thoughts about them that were worth saying or like telling other people. But these days, I feel like a lot of content is, or a lot of reviews specifically, is just, let's watch somebody play the first level of a game and then trash it for a while because that's the only part they've played, and then that's the review. And I think that they've kind of, in a lot of ways, that sort of thinking has changed what people expect from reviews and from gaming on YouTube, or game writing, you know, where they, you know, it wants a lot more personality-driven stuff. And that's kind of always been there, but I think it's a lot worse now, especially if we have, you know, if the best games journalist in the world is apparently PewDiePie and Ninja, then I think we're doomed, folks. And this is one of the few times where I'm actually kind of doom and gloom about it, because I think that I think everything is bad.
Everything is bad.
Everything is bad.
Well, look, okay. Let me make it a bit easier for you to kind of not sound like a hypocrite and sound a bit more like a conscientious individual who is concerned about something that you've invested, whether or not you want to admit this or not, a tremendous amount of time, effort, resources, blood, sweat, tears, the whole shebang into trying to create something that is enjoyable, that is easily digestible, that is informative, and that is creatively satisfying to you in the form of your website, in the form of your channel, in the form of your reviews, in the form of your off-the-cuff videos and things of that nature, and even up to and including this podcast.
Yes.
Now,
but that's not what people want.
That's not what people want, but necessarily, no. But to bring, because again, I know I ramble and fuck, I wish I could just make my points more quickly and clearly. But right, so I'm making you the head of YouTube. Congratulations on your promotion. Sorry, you can't quit. Now, your main problem is that you've got content creators, like you've alluded to, who are at the top end, who earn the most money because they've got the most eyeballs, but they are not the people who, let's be honest, between the two of us, are necessarily the most qualified to be in those positions. They've earned those positions through circumstance and through being in the right place at the right time with the right person, like you say, right personality, right idea, or just happen to be in a moment, a fortuitous moment in time when they were able to capitalize through their own genius or through just sheer dumb luck. But you also want to maintain a profitable platform. You don't want to you don't want to slap the hand that's feeding you too hard, but at the same time you do need to rein it in. And you want to encourage the smaller creators who might one day grow into be the kind of content creators that you do want, the kind of YouTuber or the kind of Twitch streamer or the type of blogger or whatever, that you go, right, not only is this person supremely qualified in what they're talking about, not only is this person a good character, someone of good moral balance, and has a good understanding of the position that they are in, which I think we can both agree a lot of YouTubers don't fully appreciate.
Not at all.
The position that they are in. To a lot of people, they don't really realize the impact they have on people's lives. Mm-hmm. But not only those two things can produce good content. Entertaining content, engaging content, something that reaches across through the screen or through the earphones and captures the imagination. How do you implement something that promotes that? Because I got to tell you, I think about this a lot because I think, well, how could I be more successful? How could I get ahead while maintaining my idea of what content should be? Sure. And the simple answer is you can't. The simple answer is you have to keep up with current events. You have to make sure you hit the iron when it's hot. Uh-huh. You have to have the quickest take. You have to have the loudest take. More often than not. I know there's exceptions to the rule and there's channels that are built up. And by the way, this is a lot of exposition. I'm going to let you answer the question now.
Okay.
But how would you go about taming this wild and ruly beast that is just limiting it to YouTube for the moment? I know that there's other platforms, but let's just say YouTube. I'm making your head allude to YouTube.
Well, the problem is I don't think there's anything YouTube can do. Because I don't think this is a YouTube problem. I think this is a YouTube viewer problem, and even worse, it's just a person problem. Because YouTube, this is not exclusive to YouTube. Like, let's. I know you wanted to keep it on YouTube, but I'm going to extend it a little bit, just as an example to prove my point. To just look at news. The idea, like, the moment something happens, it doesn't matter what, all of the every cable news channel, at least in this country, and all the news sites and all that will immediately report it because they want to be first.
Sure.
They want they want to be the first on the scene. They want to have the first with the details and all that. The problem with that is that 8 out of 10 times, almost always the initial reports end up having a lot of inaccuracies. Like, if you had waited, just like, say, the newspapers that are on a more stringent, often daily production, so where they had to basically wait, until the next day to run the news, then you would have had actual accurate information for the most part, and you would have been able to write a lot of the misinformation wouldn't have gotten out there. And that's sort of the problem that, and I mean, the reason that all those cable channels do that is because that's what the viewers want. They may say they don't want that, but they want that breaking news. They want to be there at that moment and seeing it when it's happening and getting that information and then crunching that and figuring out and figuring out how to react to it. That's what the viewer wants. Just like that's what on YouTube, the viewer doesn't want the concise review and, the thought-provoking. That's not what most YouTube viewers are looking for. They're looking to hang out with a personality. They're looking to mock some game they're never going to play. They're looking to they're looking for just a quick reaction, or in a lot of cases when it comes to reviews, they're looking for you to reinforce their opinion. Where they play the game and then they check all the other reviews to make sure everybody else agreed with them. So I think that for the most part, that's just baked into who we are, is wanting that, that stuff first and wanting that, that type of content. And I don't think we can change that. And I'm not sure, I mean, even if you could, I don't know. It's a losing fight, I think.
I'm inclined to agree with you. No. And for once, I'm in almost complete agreement because, unfortunately, you can't tell an audience what it wants.
Yeah.
You can't govern how people feel, and you certainly can't govern what their appetite for content is. You either supply it and they eat it up, or you try to give them something different and they tell you that's not what we want. But I mean, this is just personal opinion. I think, and again, this isn't in the interest of the people that are in charge to do this, but I do think it's incumbent upon the people that lead these companies to be more cognizant of the message that they allow to put out, even at the expense of a little bit of income. Because I worry about the bubble bursting at some point, because like anything else, social media is blowing up to ridiculous proportions. Like I said, there's a tremendous amount, an avalanche of content. More content that there's more content than any one human being could ever possibly hope to consume in dozens of lifetimes. So really,
of lifetimes.
Like it's a question of, right, well, okay, we've got an infinite realm of people to pick from. Who are we pushing and for what reason? Because YouTube has the power to do that if they want to, and it like you say, I don't want to sound hypocritical, because unfortunately that kind of comment doesn't bode well for me. I have only a few subscribers. I have even fewer views comparative to other channels with many more subscribers. So my channel is going to be the first for the chart. But at the same time, I do understand and recognize that maybe that's a good thing, because maybe then the channels that have proven to have a steady audience, that have restricted, because because I always like to use you as the example. I look at your comment section. Even though you get the occasional very silly comment, and we discuss that on
silly.
Time to time. Well, I'm being polite.
Very.
But
you mean the very hate-filled, awful comments?
Well, look, I don't see a lot of racism. I don't see a lot of sexism necessarily. Yeah. You have people that will sometimes go after you because they think you're an easy target.
Right.
Now, while that's neither, I don't condone that. While I don't necessarily understand it either.
Yeah, and I don't mind that.
Exactly. It's kind of par for the course. Unfortunately,
sure.
you're going to draw the eye of some people, mainly because I suspect they're jealous. A lot of them.
Could be.
Because you have a platform that they don't possess. You have an opinion that people listen to and respect. Their opinion is probably often very, it's not held in high regard, and if it isn't, it's just disregarded altogether. It's disappointing, and believe me, I know what that's like. But that's why you've got to try and find your voice, and that's why you've got to try and garner an audience, and that takes time, it takes persistence, and it also takes a great deal of receptiveness. You've got to learn how to maybe adapt a little bit. I don't do that very well, which is why I frustrate you.
Every great... this is a weird analogy, but I think this works. Every great television show about a television show. You know what I'm talking about? Like sort of the shows that are behind the scenes, like 30 Rock or the Larry Sanders Show or Sports Night. Any of those where it's a show, about the making of a show, right? All of those shows in those shows... Boy, I've said show way too many times. All of the shows in those shows are doing bad in the ratings, right? They're never like the most successful show on the television. They're never the they're never dramatizing or doing stuff with like the biggest player on the block. They're always sort of the underdog.
Sure.
And I think that's obvious. I mean, for obvious reasons, that is just a much more compelling story because it's easier to root for those people. But at the same time, I think that you have to define your own success. Like if you go into YouTube or something like that saying like, I'm not going to be successful until I have 1 million subscribers. I think that you are setting yourself up for just a lifetime of disappointment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Sadly, in a lot of cases, what you have to do to get 1 million subscribers, you have to do something really dumb. You
Yes.
have to do something super over the top that gets, such media attention. And often it's bad in a bad press sort of way. Maybe not in an illegal sort of way, but in the bad press sort of way, where, you're doing something that's just like, oh, why would you even do that? But then you attract enough people that are similar thinking to you or are at least interested in that kind of content to where, suddenly now you're blowing up. And I think that we reward the bad behavior so much that, if I were 18 and like trying to make a career on YouTube, it would be really hard for me not to, even if it's just pretending to be super over the top in some pretty terrible ways, probably. Because that's where a lot of the money or a lot of the success is going to come from. Should you do that? I don't think so. And that's why I think you should probably set your figure out what is it that is going to be successful, or what is success for you. Now, I went into both YouTube and the website to begin with, wanting to connect with other people, wanting to share my opinion, but also hear what other people had to say, and then networking and corresponding. And it's easier now than it was back then, obviously. And there's a whole story and podcast dedicated to that, I'm sure. But then versus now. Like that, that's one of the big reasons is because I want to hear, I like having the contact with other people, but I also like the idea of getting a lot of games for free. And so like if you go into this just, like if you're already wanting to buy a lot of games and I can't afford that, but I can't afford to play them and then review them, then like it's a pretty good racket. Because at this point, I'm getting like 20 or 30 games a week. So it ends up being a pretty good racket if that's what if that's the sort of how you define success. And I think that as long as you're having steady growth, I think that's kind of how you have to gauge it. Yeah. Like if you're plateaued or you're, I don't know, or you're losing people, then I think it's probably due to complacency, and maybe it should come down to doing something trying to shake things up somehow. Well, if I may add an analogy, then I don't know if it was Seinfeld. It might have been Seinfeld who said, the key to a good sitcom isn't necessarily by the end of the sitcom that everyone's won the lottery and they've all married the supermodel. It's that
they've had to have shown a little bit of growth, and they have to have been in a better position than when they started, even if only by a little. Then the audience will feel that's a good payoff. Mm-hmm. It's the same sort of thing with success.
He didn't use that advice in that Seinfeld finale, though.
Oh, well, that's the thing. I don't know if it was necessarily. I thought it was, but I might be getting him confused with Chuck Lorre or another famous sci-fi. Sitcom. Sitcom writer.
Yeah.
But the point is that the curve for success and satisfaction are better when it's, like you say, gradual and sustained, rather than sharp and short. Because
look, if I can
that's the expectation then, isn't it? That it's always going to be sharp and short and steep. But that's not sustainable. It never has been.
If I can find a group of people that I just like being around, and then there's, added money on top of that, that just seems like a win to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, there's a lot of things that I would end up just doing for free, and a lot of things I have ended up doing for free, that I just think, I don't know, I and that's why you can't be that focused, I think, on, getting to the million subscriber or something like that, because then you really do start focusing, you lose track of why you're doing it, why you're doing it for fun, or why you're doing, for other reasons. You lose track of why you're doing it. And you get really focused on, having to be super outrageous or not being yourself. And I don't want to look back, and that's the thing. I don't want to look back in 10 years at stuff I did and then cringe because I think that quality, not because of quality or something like, or like just a dumb opinion, or I was wrong on like, oh, this game is terrible now or something like that. I mean, that's fine. But, like, I don't want to look back and see that I was wasting my life on really petty stuff or on things that I would really regret in the future. Mm. Like, for example, getting into, like, YouTube drama or something like that. Like, I think that, like...
I was going to ask you about that, by the way.
That's another really sure way of getting a lot of hits, because people want that drama. At a point, it is just very high school.
Well, let me ask you, because I'm interested by this, because you... Again, more than me, because you do have an audience. You do have a name, even if you want to dismiss the fact that you have either one of those things. Mm-hmm. You must have encountered people that want to try and make a name off you. That has to have happened. And yet I don't know if that's the case, because I don't think you would ever talk about it even if it had happened. If you'd had people spreading shit about you, or trying to insinuate things about you, or taking things that you say out of context, or just plain bad-mouthing you.
Earlier this year, Tiny Build Studios and then another indie developer got a hold of me to let me know that there was somebody sending out emails saying they worked at the defunctgames.com, and they wanted free codes. They're like, is this person for real? And I'm like, no, that's not me. So, like, I've got it that way, where it's people trying to impersonate me to get free stuff, which I'm curious to see if that worked at all. It probably does, to be honest. And I hate to say it, but don't do that, people in the audience.
I can just see you pondering now, well, if that works with someone pretending to be me, what if I pretended that I was someone pretending to be me? What if I could get free stuff pretending to be me, pretending to be me?
What's funny is that we went to the Patrick and I, somebody that worked at the site. Patrick and I went to E3 one year, a bunch of years, but one of the years we went there, we did not have an appointment for the not Sony, it was Disney, when Disney Interactive, when they still had a studio, and they had a waiting list for people, like, to do the tour and then to interview somebody, but we didn't know that, and we didn't have an interview, and Patrick, goes there, and we're both talking to the person, and it's like, oh, let's see if you're on the list, and we knew we weren't on the list, and the guy looks down, and was like, oh, your name's Patrick, right? Here you are, and So we went on the tour and we did that, and the entire time the guy kept calling Patrick, or you kept thinking that this Patrick was Patrick Klepek, who I think was at 1UP at the time, or he was at another outlet at the time, but completely thinking it was another person the entire time. And we had a good laugh about that afterwards.
That's good fun, though, because it's just one of those weird little things where you just, hey, dude, do we want to just roll with this? Yes, I think we should just roll with this. What's the worst that could happen? It's a bit of a mix-up, and we go, oh, this is yours. Here you go. Enjoy the rest of your tour. We're gonna go over here and what's that over there? You know, just running away afterwards. But yeah, I mean, I only ask that because, I've not had any YouTube drama, but, if you've ever been on Twitter, it's not all that hard to get into a quote-unquote drama with somebody because it's very confrontational. But with YouTube, it feels oddly
I've had drama
personal.
on Twitter. I haven't had YouTube drama, and I've had drama on the website. I've had other websites attacking the defunctgames.com.
But I
haven't had any YouTube drama, though.
Yeah, but it feels,
not that I know of,
it feels uniquely different when someone is directly targeting you using that as the because then it becomes a thing of anything you post at that point then becomes somehow tinged with it. If you're not talking about it, people are going to be asking you about it. If you are talking about it, people are going to criticize you for talking about it. You kind of put in a no-win situation.
I mean, I have to assume that there will be a day when somebody calls out a lot of the cliches that I use, or, I hate this guy because of this and that, and I'm sure that'll be the case at some point, and that'll be flattering. But I think that for the most part, I kind of avoid a lot of that because, like I said, I don't do drama videos. I don't really get into fights with people. There are definitely people that I've gotten into fights with. But they're not, they're generally speaking, they're not people that are doing drama, things and stuff like that. And I'm not really calling out other personalities and stuff like that. For the most part, I'm very much geared just towards looking at the games that are coming out and reviewing those, and then kind of looking backwards with the Game Over episodes and, recapping entire old games and their endings and stuff like that. So, it's not... I think that's why I avoid a lot of the drama.
Yeah. I keep wondering how I'd react if I ever got into a YouTube drama. The closest I ever got was with, I think we've had this conversation before, and I've discussed it with the guy, so I don't feel weird about saying it, is with Cinematic Venom, when he mentioned me in one of his videos, and I just felt the compulsion to... And it wasn't... And literally all he was like, yeah, well, Lorne hasn't talked to me about it. So I just messaged him. I just said... Well, dude, I don't have any beef. I hope you're okay. And if you ever want to talk, I'm just at the end of the phone. That was that. It's kind of done. You know what I mean? So it's like, I could have fired back saying, do you know what, guys? I woke up today and I saw the most mind-blowing thing ever. Turns out and do you know what? It's like, fuck, I'm annoying myself just acting that shit out. But it's, like you say, it's just, where does it go? It only escalates. And what happens when things escalate? Feelings get hurt.
Yeah.
And
well, let me ask you.
Did anyone really get into YouTube to start hurting other people's feelings? I kind of feel like people got into YouTube. Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of people did.
Wow, I feel naive now. But sorry, you were going to ask...
a lot of people started.
You were going to ask a question. I interrupted. My apologies. What's the question?
Do you think that, maybe what we should do is, this is more of just an idea, maybe what we should do, do you think it's a good idea for us to maybe get into a big fight, a YouTube fight with, I don't know, the guys over at Game Enthuse or On the Stick or The Game Machine or one of those guys where it's everyone's kind of just fighting back and forth and we all profit? Do you think that's...
Look,
we can create a kill stream and then yell at each other?
Right, okay. I have a what's the fucking word for? I have a motto, okay? And it's a simple motto, and it serves me well in my real life as it does my virtual life. If you come at the king, you better kill the king, because otherwise, and it goes from there. I feel like if someone comes after me, you better at least, number one, make it funny, and two, you better make sure I can't come back. Because if I come back, you're going down. There's no two ways about it. Because whoever gets the first shot in has to emerge the victor, otherwise they're guaranteed to be the loser. And if you want to get involved in a Twitter battle, YouTube drama, whatever, fine, just make sure that the first shot is the final shot. Simples. And it serves me well in real life because it's one of those things where if someone's a tool to me, it's, hey, listen, you better make sure the next few words out of your mouth are either really funny or give me incentive not to fire back, because unfortunately, I sit here with a loaded gun of insults all day long. So you better make sure this next thing is pure gold. And 9 times out of 10, what happens? Feelings get hurt because I have a chance to fire back. Yeah. So I think that if we are going to pick our fights, it has to be against people that we both know. We're landing the KO blow before we're hitting them in the face.
I'm coming for you, Aaron at Game Enthuse.
Look, we're the people walking up to people asking for an autograph. We hit them over the head with the brick. We take their wallet before they even know what's going on. Okay, we're not the kind of people that go, "Hey, you guys suck." Ha, yeah, burned you. You know, because then it's you're inviting the return shot. And at that point, what do? You kind of have whatever they say at that point is going to be funnier than what you said.
Exactly.
And that's kind of it. So, I just like the idea that you're thinking, well, who could we pick? If we are going to start a YouTube channel, I kind of want it to be a big one. Who can we pick? And who can we beat, obviously? So I tell you what, let's put a Venn diagram of people that we want to start YouTube battles with people that we think we could win, and let's just pick a few subsect of that cross section in the middle that we'll just pick fights with.
Yes,
for no reason.
Oh, that's a whole podcast right there.
Just disseminating people. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia style with the big wallboard and the ones like. So if we do him, he will then insult this person because it's a defense mechanism against what we said, and therefore he won't fire back at us, and therefore we can fire back at this guy, who will in turn fire back at both of them. Yeah, I like it. That's fun.
Lauren, are you ready for a twist?
A twist? I always love a twist.
Yeah, because now I've been doom and gloom about this topic, as I think you noted, but there is the possibility of a positive future, because things ebb and flow, and and sometimes you want that mean-spirited stuff, but then later, when things are different or times have changed, people want something a little different. So it could just be that something will run its course, and then, they'll be looking for a different type. Maybe some of the people will grow up. I don't know. Who knows what'll happen? The next thing will come out, and just like Facebook, where the only people on Facebook anymore are our parents. So there's room for optimism, but should you review the first level of games and react to the newest trailers? No, probably not. If I'm being honest. If you have some really creative ideas, even if they don't get picked up, even if nobody sees them, I think that's worthwhile. And I think those are the things that people will feel the most satisfied with and most fulfilled by.
Okay. Yeah. Well, when I encourage people to take up something like YouTube or whatever, it's usually with the purpose of, well, is there something you want to say? Well, then figure out how you want to say it and then go nuts.
Or is there something you want to improve? Because that's another thing that, another reason to create is to get better at certain crafts, be it your writing or be it editing, voice acting, whatever. I think all of those things are things that will improve and you'll gain confidence in as you do them, dozens and hundreds and thousands of times.
Sure.
And so if one of the things that you didn't I'm not somebody who I don't like sitting down and just talking to myself unscripted like you've done with a lot of the podcasts. That's something I would like to be able to do, and simply just doing it over and over and over. And I mean, I think that's obviously how how I would get better at that, and that's just a skill that I would need to do. So, but that's also the reason to do it, the reason to push yourself, because it helps improve almost every aspect of your life. It hurts other aspects. Like I could be out there exercising right now, but I'm sitting here talking to you. I have a very stationary job.
Well, I told you, if it works and it draws, then I'm fully prepared to do these podcasts / live streams while weightlifting. I feel like it would add an extra dimension. I feel like, it might get us flagged from time to time because YouTube would listen to the audio and think, what's going on here? But, it's a different angle. Gaming and gains. Gaining. Welcome to This Week in Weekly Gaining, brah, where we game and gain. What are the gains?
Like, I mean, who thought? I mean, there's so many little trends that who thought ASMR would catch on? Who thought that like watching people just eat big meals would catch on?
The one that gets me. This is live streaming games. Like you just said, eating large meals. The one that gets me the most is watching things be extracted by needle.
Oh yeah.
There is something truly disturbing about that
and stuff like that. Yeah.
That is something every single person that subscribed to those channels needs examining mentally because you can't explain to me how that's not creepy.
It is creepy. Yeah.
The same kind of person that would willingly stroke a tarantula because they think it's quote-unquote cute. Same sort of person. There's no justification to what you're doing. Put it down and go and find something else to do. Me and your mother are very disappointed in you.
So maybe this is a hot take.
Hot take.
And I'm not...
Hot take.
And trust me, I'm not singling out specific people or creators or critics or whatever. But I think that you kind of have to go into this kind of field with the idea that half of the fun is going to be about figuring out how to do better. Mm-hmm. How to improve your numbers and views or interactions or whatever. Like that's the strategy of that or the gaming of that or the just figuring that stuff out has to be part of it. So that, what frustrates me is like there will be a lot of creators that'll just like you look at their Twitter or that you look at their oh boy, I'm starting feuds here. And you look at this is the drama episode where like all their content will be like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to review. Should I review this? And here's a poll. I mean, I returned the game and it's like months old, but should I don't know. Should I review it, guys? And like if that's the attitude you have where it's, you're not even sure what to do.
Yeah.
Or what you want to say, then maybe this isn't for you.
Dude, I couldn't agree with you more because, again, like we've discussed about the new idea that I have for videos, it's because I want to do something different and because I'm inspired to do it. Now, the reason why I got into that is because, quite frankly, doing just game reviews the idea kind of bores me a little bit.
Yeah,
because I've done 5 or 6 of them scripted now, so I've played them from start to finish. I've researched them as much as I can.
Those are long games too,
and I've tried to make it, but it's something that's been done to death. It's something that's done way better by people who have established audiences, and there's nothing you're gonna do, barring some kind of sex scandal, is gonna change that.
Yeah.
Now. But if you can come up with do you know what, actually, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because when you see polls like that, which is like, so what do you guys want to see? And it's, well, hang on a second, you're the content creator, you're the one making the show, what story are you telling me? What journey are you taking me on? Why do I have to give you the idea? Because if I'm giving you the idea, clearly you're not going to be very passionate about it.
Sure.
Because it's not your idea.
And don't get me wrong. I like when people, send me, like, are you going to review this game? Or are you, or stuff like that? Because, like, there are a lot of things where it's just completely off my radar. So I like the viewer interaction or the reader interaction suggesting things, because there are a lot of times, like those Game Over episodes, where it's really helpful to know what other people are wanting from that show. That input's really helpful. But when you can't rely on that. Like, at a point, like, most of it has to be just you driving this boat, and having just a clear vision of where you're going in that boat is also very helpful, because you can't, like, you don't want to be driving that boat in a circle. So I don't know why I used boat so many times, but we'll probably mix it in with but that's the thing that I like the most about the website, and then to a lesser extent, but getting to a better extent now on YouTube, is I like just there you have the opportunity to be creative and to do ideas that other people aren't doing, and maybe one of those will stick. I mean, there are a lot of examples of people that did pretty standard stuff, and then they had an idea, and that ended up blowing up for whatever reason. It's just, like you said, time and place, and who knows. But, like, if you're having a good time creating that stuff, and in my case, I'm getting a lot of games, I'm meeting friends and meeting new people, networking, I'm having a good time. Like, you have to define what success means to you.
Sure.
And what you're looking to get out of the situations. And it's not going to be the same for everybody. But, I mean, I don't know. Why stop now?
Well, I actually think, as much as that might seem like a fairly vague way to... I think that's actually a really affirming sentiment. And, to be honest, I can't think of a better way to kind of cap off what has been, at times a bit fraught. I think with the Battison conversation,
you're still wrong about the Battison.
Well, we went back and forth on that. I think you got some good shots in.
Clearly, I
won. Before you went down for the 10 count. But there's nothing. Again, I told you, if you come at the king, you better take down the king, because otherwise, I really need to think of a way to end that motto with an otherwise something catchy, but I just have, you better come at the king, you better kill the king. I'll think of something at some point.
Well, let me, before you end this, let me ask you a question.
Go
Is there going to be a room for a little section for the Patreon supporters?
Patreon?
So
really?
No, okay.
You think I'm ready? Training wheels come off and I finally have to justify what I do on this channel? Hey, Lorne, why did you do that? Why did I pay £5 for this week?
That's a good question.
I don't know. Tune in next week to find out why. Look, if the conversation I had with a colleague of mine at work is to be believed, there is a way of making money off this thing. I haven't figured it out yet.
Yes.
And to be perfectly honest, I hope I never do, because I worry about money complicating things, and to be honest, I'll let you figure out how to make this a viable business, and if you ever do, I just hope you buy a mansion, big, with a yacht and stuff. Just make sure it's got like a little portable garage over the top of, like a little portable flat above a garage, and I'll just move in there.
We will just have to continue updating the audience on how that goes. Just every so often.
We'll see what happens. But before we wrap it up, I do, as benign an offer as it is there anything you'd like to plug? Is there anything you'd like to warn people about? Is there anything you'd like to? Is there an upcoming apocalypse that you know of that you need to warn people of?
When is this coming out?
Well, I'll get this. What time are we now? So I'm going to get some kip at some point. But what I will do is I will get the first draft of this ready to go by tomorrow, and then I'm going to chop it up into the parts and then upload them.
So when will people hear this?
No, because you know now, right? I don't have to worry about uploading them because I have internet that works.
Yes.
So I don't have to spend a day uploading a video. I can upload all 3 in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So potentially, it's just a question of how long it takes to render each video, which is probably I don't know, an hour each.
Okay. I mean, okay. Assuming this goes up, I don't know, in the next couple of days.
Where are we today? We're Wednesday today, correct?
Wednesday. Yeah.
Right. So if I have tomorrow to get it edited, and then I have Friday to get it all all uploaded, I'd hope to have it up by Saturday at the latest.
All right. Then here, let me tell you. If you're listening to this on Saturday or Sunday or around that weekend, you're probably excited, or at least know that Godzilla movie came out. And if you're excited about that Godzilla movie, then here's what you should do. You should go to the Defunct Games YouTube channel or defunctgames.com. It's at both spots. And watch our Game Over episode where we look at the endings of almost a dozen Godzilla games in the 8 and 16-bit eras. I'm talking about a lot of games that are terrible. You're never going to ever want to play these games, but some of them have very interesting endings. But the games are terrible, so don't ever play them. Just watch the 20-minute long video. You'll see all of the endings, including a couple that were from like the MSX that only had a single congratulations screen. Watch just watch that. That's all you need. And then I don't know, go to Godzilla or not. But that's what you should do right now. And we also have some reviews. I have Zombies in City. I have that review going up on Friday. Oddly enough, that game's a little better than that name suggests.
I don't know what I would expect from any game that's got the word zombie in it anymore. I feel like it's been, I
sort of feel like that game maybe needed another word. Like, I think Zombies in the City, or Zombies and the City, or maybe just Zombie City.
Yeah.
So either fewer words or more words were needed, because Zombies in City just sounds super incomplete.
We'll just get rid of the zombie part. Just go Z City.
Oh, I'm sure that's probably already been taken.
We'll have the Z spelt with 2 E's.
Oh, well, there you go. So I don't know. It's an okay game. But we had a lot of fun reviews recently, and I have reviews coming next week that I'm sure I'm playing right now that I am totally spacing on. But
I do have one question that by the way, I will ask you live. Well, not live, but anyway, we're recording. If I can figure out how to get the live stream working where I can put graphics and stuff in,
like with OBS.
Would you be kind enough to be a guest on that once I can get it figured out?
Absolutely, because I want to see the chats. We got to get those super chats.
Well, I've been told reliably that the old school oh god, what's the goddamn word for it? I had it, the OBS thing. What's it called?
I don't know.
It's got a name. It's the program that you use to live stream with.
Okay.
What's it called?
Well, I don't know, but I
know
what you're talking about now, at least.
I keep thinking it's an emulator, but it isn't an emulator. It's something.
Okay.
I did have it figured out before. I ditched it because I thought it was the program. It turns out it isn't. It was my shitty internet that couldn't keep up with both programs.
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
Now I have trick-ass internet. I can actually.
Let's experiment with that.
Well, what I can do with that is I can actually schedule it, and I can actually do this, that, the other. So it means we can actually do this like a professional. Like I don't know, I
want to do that.
So I'll get organised. I'll try and get that done.
Hell, we can even set up a Discord server and have other people call in and berate you when you're wrong.
That would be great. Because again, if there's one thing that's true, that's gonna. Do you know what? Screw it. It's my catchphrase now. If the audience wants to come at the king, they're going to get the king.
Oh boy. You've said that now like 5 times. That is your catchphrase. I want it
to. Oh, do you know what? Halcyon.
You're trying to make it stick.
It's going to be Halcyon. It's good to be the king. That's going to be the new T-shirt design when I get the new ones out. Next
Lauren,
month,
you're not going to make fetch stick.
Well, hey, by the way, new t-shirt designs. I've decided next month I'm investing in getting at least 10 new t-shirts printed.
10.
10. I'm going to give them to people that I haven't decided who I'm going to give them to yet. But they're going to be a prize for some people. In fact, one of them's got to be yours. I feel like I have to mail you one.
That sounds like a nightmare to mail from across the pond. Well,
either that or I'll send it to America and let them figure out how to get it to you.
Oh, jeez, yeah. It'll just go to the middle. It'll be like Kansas. Somewhere.
Where do you want this going?
America. That sounds like a foreign name. Are you sure that's supposed to be in America? Deport him.
Well, in fairness, it's it's about as specific as I can get with countries, considering that I didn't know Azerbaijan had a border with Armenia up until 2 hours ago. But anyway, we're getting into geography. I'm going to say thank you for taking the time out of your incredibly busy and highly lucrative schedule to be here today.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to anyone that took the time to tune into either this or the other parts of this podcast.
And if you haven't listened to those other parts, they're even better than this.
They are, and do you know what? Not recorded in succession. You wouldn't believe it by the way that they've been recorded. We're so seamless and professional in the way that we do these that people wouldn't guess that we film them sometimes weeks apart. That's a filthy lie, but still, I appreciate you taking the time, dude. And this is this is the weird part. This is where I'm going to talk to you like a human being rather than the host. This is the weird part. I have to talk to now the audience, like it's not just the both of us. So I am going to talk to the audience like it's not just the two of us, but I am fully aware that you're there. So thank you very much for listening to this edition of the Halcyon Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. Check out the other content creators that I've left in the description below, including this sexy bastard.
Except
check
for
out
Giffy.
some of the. We've gone over this. In fact, no. I'm making it a point to get because he's got to come on the podcast at some point because he actually fuck it. I'll announce this right now. He has very kindly committed to doing some voiceover work for me.
You go, Giffy.
He is going to be the character that is going to appear in the very first edition of the Versus shows that I'm putting together.
Breaking news!
And I'm really happy because I think he's gonna knock it out of the park. He's a bit like I was with you when we did the quiz, not quiz, but the the quiz. When I was like, oh, how do we do this? Do you want me to do this? And I'm like, dude, just fucking vibe, man. It's fine.
Yeah.
We're just gonna do it. Well, when do we need to do it by? Dude, it doesn't need to be done by ever. If it never comes out, it's not a big deal. We got time. So now I know how you feel when you're like, dude, just relax, man. We're just having fun. So he's very kindly donated some of his time and efforts into reading a script that I cobbled together through nothing more than sheer perseverance. Hopefully you'll hear that soon. But I'm going to get you two conversing at some point because I think you'd have at least a reasonable conversation. If nothing else, then he'll correct you as to why it's not
have
Jiffy.
the feud with.
Oh, you don't want to feud with him. He's crazy. He'll tear us apart, man. He'll come at the king and kill the king.
Fake feud.
He'll come at the king and kill the king. I guarantee it right now. I'm not in to monarchicide or whatever the hell the term is. I much rather prefer to stay the king if it's all the same to you.
This episode is officially off the rails.
But it's been fun. It's been fun.
Absolutely.
I feel like this has been more fun than the last one.
Really? Well,
I feel that the last one
what the people
was,
say.
we were actually analytical in the last one. This one, I feel like we talked a lot of shit.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that everybody that I complained about will be telling me on Twitter.
You'll be fine.
Oh, I'm sure. It'll be the big, he started so much drama.
Oh, God. Well, listen. That was the end of the Halcyon Podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Take care of yourselves.
Bye.
Who have you been?
Oh, I have been Cyril Lachelle.
And until when?
Then? Now?
I thought it was going to be like the tag team thing, like until when? Until like I was going to do it like a little stuff. Like I was going to do it like
for the catchphrase.
Well, I was going to do it like a child does it to their parent, like, hey, until when? And you're going to go, son, Until then. Ah, he said the thing!
Well, all right. Until then.
Until then, peace out, folks.